Welcome back everyone. So I've so far compared and reviewed all the PlayStation 3s, some PS4s, all the PSPs I think so far besides one of them, the PS2, PS1, but I have never reviewed the PS3 or PlayStation 3 Slim yet, and I've actually owned this for about a year. I was going to do this video last year, but for some reason I didn't have enough time, so I figured I might as well review it this year. And so many people are enjoying these Sony PlayStation reviews that I've been doing that makes me kind of want to do their Sony phone so far. And they actually released a Sony PlayStation phone, which I've already reviewed too, but I might make an updated video this year, who knows. Now with the PlayStation 3 Slim, this was actually a pretty cool, I think, addition to their whole entire lineup. I don't think it was like a crazy huge improvement from the previous generation, but I do think that it kind of brought a lot to the table. And even for an integral upgrade or for like a little bit of an upgrade, it's still a pretty cool console overall. And I definitely do think this console kind of held up better than the original PlayStation 3, but I still personally feel like the original PlayStation 3 was like the best console out of all three of them. So if you guys don't know, there was the PlayStation 3 that first came out, then the PlayStation 3 Slim, and then the PlayStation 3 Super Slim, and I actually own all three of those. I've already reviewed the PS3, now I just have to review the Super Slim after this. And with the PlayStation 3 Slim, really PlayStation and Sony's main objective was to make a smaller and slimmer console, and by doing that they kind of had to cut some corners here and there, which really wasn't that big of a deal, but I think they could have definitely put in a little bit more into this console, making it an even better console overall. Now the PlayStation 3 Slim was released on August 18th of 2009, and basically the main thing and the main selling factor was that it was slimmer and that it kind of looked better overall. But my thing is that are people even going to look at their consoles when they're playing it, and doesn't even matter if it's slimmer? Like if it's slimmer or bigger, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day because you're just going to set it off. It's not like you're going to bring it with you everywhere. So that kind of selling point doesn't really make too much sense. And we saw Sony do it again with the PS4 Slim, but we also saw Xbox do it, and with Microsoft with the Xbox One S, and eventually with the One X and all those consoles. So it's not just, specific for Sony. It's so many people do it. People do it for phones too, which makes a little bit more sense. But with the PS3 Slim, another selling factor was the decreased power consumption and a quieter cooling system, which was really cool. And, they sold quite a bit of these consoles, but again, nothing like the original PlayStation 3. And in terms of that, those are really the main selling points of this specific thing. Now looking at the actual console itself, what I will tell you is I really do like how this thing feels. It still pretty much feels like a pretty decent console. I like that matte texture on the back, on the front. It feels really good. It doesn't feel like it's supposed to be something that it's not. With the original PlayStation 3, that console felt really nice. But the only thing was it was super heavy and it was pretty big. So at least they decrease the size from that, which kind of makes sense. Like that console was a pretty big console. With the PlayStation 3 Slim, they eventually made it smaller, which was really, really good, I guess. Now on the front of the PlayStation 3, or at least on the top, you had that PlayStation 3 logo, and really that's pretty much it. There's nothing else to it, and that's why this console looked really, really nice. Again, I like that specific design about it, and I think even in 2020 it still holds up pretty well. On the front you can see we have those two USB ports which are integral to the whole entire system of this thing, and I think those are only the two ports left. They took some away from the original PlayStation 3. However, I was able to see a bunch of these PlayStation 3 Slim specific USB hubs that you can plug into the front. So if you want to get one of those, I'll link them down below. I think they're you can use them for a laptop too. But I saw those and I figured a lot of you guys might enjoy those if you haven't already seen them before. You also have that disc drive up front. What's really cool about that disc drive is that you're also able to play Blu-ray discs and all those things, which I'm sure you guys already know. And I think in 2020, I don't know how many people are using Blu-ray players still, because we can stream everything straight from Netflix and everything. We have 4K screens and all those things. So Blu-ray is still really, really good though. On the sides, really nothing. It's just kind of the chassis of the device. And on the back, you can see that the setup is almost pretty much the same as the previous PS3s. We have the Ethernet port, we have the HDMI port, we have the AC adapter as well, and then another port, I think that's for wireless, whatever. And we also have the fans on the back as well. And in terms of everything, that's pretty much the whole entire console. Again, nothing too crazy. I think it's held up pretty well. It still feels really good too, that's the thing. Again, I think the original PlayStation 3 feels the best, and then the PS3 Super Slim probably feels the worst out of all of them if I'm being honest. And the biggest advantages with the PlayStation 3 Slim, and even with the PS3 lineup versus a lot of the other competitors, like I've stated before, was definitely the addition of playing these super graphical intensive games that were really, really nice at the time. And even now in 2020, we look back and we're like, wow, those console graphics were really good. Now Xbox at the Xbox Xbox 360s and Nintendo with the Nintendo Wii, those games were more like, not so graphically intensive on the Wii's, but with the PS3s and the Xbox, those were almost neck and neck. And it's funny because the Wii ended up outselling all those, but the PS3 Slim had some really, really cool things with it at the end of the day. And when we look back now in 2020, the best thing about it is the game selections that we have. And that is one of the best things about it for sure. When we have a game console that, came out many years ago, we get all of those game titles that are super dope, and we have all those Spyros, the Crash Bandicoots, which are like the most basic versions of them, all those Forzas, and so many different games that are for this thing that are crazy, Call of Duties. And the best thing about it is that they are super cheap at the end of the day. They do not cost that much money. If you want to go to GameStop, we can't really go there anymore, but if you want to go to like buy them on eBay or whatever, they are super cheap to purchase, which is a really awesome thing. However, one of the biggest gripes with the original PlayStation 3 Slim that the original PlayStation 3 didn't have was the fact that it wasn't backwards compatible, which is a really annoying thing. It's how can you have a backwards compatible console from the first one and not have it on the second one? So the PS3 Slim could only play PlayStation 3 games, where the original PlayStation 3 could not only play PlayStation 2 games, but also PlayStation 1 games. And with the PS3 Slim, they eliminated both of those options, which is honestly really weird. So all those games that you could have played on the PlayStation 3 weren't necessarily compatible with the PlayStation 3 Slim, which is a very weird concept. Not really too sure why they did that. They eventually, I guess there were some game titles that you could purchase on the PlayStation Network or the PlayStation Shop, but still at the end of the day, it was a very weird thing for them to do. And I'm hoping with the PlayStation 5 that console will also be backwards compatible, and apparently from what they said, that is also going to be the case. So I guess, they learned their lesson eventually. But there's still a bunch of PlayStation 3 games you can purchase for this thing that make up for it. And the best thing about it with the PlayStation 3 is that it really only costs like $80 to $100 right now, which honestly the first time that I saw that, I was pretty shocked about that price, because I can get a PS4 for like $120 to $150. I can probably even get a Slim PS4 for a little bit, around that price too. So these things are really only like $50 difference between, on the top end of the PS3's Slims to the cheap end of the PS4s. But still, the PS3 Slims have, a little bit of life left in them for sure. So if you can snag one up for less than $80, I'd be like, okay, that's not like that bad of a deal. But if you spend more than $100, I'd be like, you might as well just go spend a little bit more and get a PS4 at the end of the day. Now, another really cool thing about the PS3 Slim is that you are able to mod it. Now, there's so many different tutorials online, so I'm not really going to go into depth in this one, but what's really cool when you modify a PS3 Slim is that you have a bunch of different capabilities that you wouldn't necessarily have had if you kept it stock. You can maybe play and emulate those specific consoles that you weren't necessarily able to play those games with before. And I think having a PS3 Slim, if you own one, I think it's like a right you should have if you modify it. I've seen a lot of it, and I've modified a couple consoles myself. I modified the Wii that I had. All my DSs pretty much are modded, and I haven't modded a PS3 or anything like that yet, but I'm sure the process won't be too hard. Pretty much you just have to install custom firmware on it and go from there. And what's really cool about the PS3 Slim is that if something goes wrong, you won't necessarily have to spend an arm and a leg. It's not like you spend like $1,000 on it. It costs you maybe like $50, which is still a lot of money, but the chances of something going wrong aren't necessarily too high. So what I will tell you is with the PS3 Slim, there's still a lot of advantages to picking it up in 2020. It's definitely not the perfect console, and honestly, if it was between the original PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 3 Slim, I would honestly probably just end up picking up the original PlayStation 3 just because you're getting those capabilities like the backwards compatibility, and really the biggest concept and the biggest, updating factor of going to a PS3 Slim is the way it looks and the power consumption. But the thing is that, the power consumption is one thing, but the way it looks and the being slimmer and all that isn't really that big of a deal, because most of the time you're just going to set it off and it's going to be underneath your TV. You're probably going to hide it behind like a cupboard or something. Like, it's not that big of a deal. You're not going to be messing with it too much, but the amount of functionality that you will be getting from a PlayStation 3 is going to outperform and outlive, I think, than the PS3 Slim. And in terms of the graphical performance and everything, the PS3 Slim might be a little bit faster here and there, but definitely the original PlayStation 3 I think is the best one out of all three of those PlayStation 3s that came out. However, like I stated, the PS3 Slim, if you own it or if you can get one for less than $80, I would say go for it. It's all yours. It's really like a pretty decent console still in 2020. But you can say that about any of the PlayStation 3 lineups for sure. So to kind of wrap up, the PlayStation 3 Slim, I think still holds up pretty well even 11 years later. Again, I don't think it brought like a crazy amount to the table, but for what they were able to do at the time, I think it's a pretty decent pickup now in 2020, especially if you consider all the facts of the great lineup of games that the PlayStation 3 lineup had, as well as the cheap console itself and also the cheap accessories, the cheap controllers, the cheap games, all that stuff. You can do a lot with this console for not a lot of money versus something like a PlayStation 4 console. The games are still coming out and those are still costing like 80, 50, 90 bucks or something like that. Most PS3 games are going to cost you less than like 20 bucks if you want to buy it now. So like I said, if you want to pick up the USB hub that I talked about, link will be down in the description. I'll see if I can find a PS3 Slim or a PS3 or any PlayStation 3 on Amazon, and I'll link it down below too. But that's pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys could check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.